welcome to your weekly Sunday lunchtime serving of political news and debate from the North East and Cumbria. Plenty of meat, but no Yorkshire puds, I'm afraid. It's austerity. Coming up, it's the Weir Tyne derby this weekend, and we're asking if football fans should get more of a say in the running of their clubs. The government tells us it's dropped plans for new laws, so where does that leave supporters? Well, Ian Lavery is a lifelong Newcastle fan and Labour MP for Wansbeck in Northumberland. He joins me in the studio. And also here, the newly selected Conservative candidate for Berwick, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, I'm sure a mean midfielder herself. Now, you may not need me to tell you it's derby weekend, with Sunderland and Newcastle going head-to-head at the Stadium of Light. As ever, the rivalry will be intense, with little love lost on either side. But there's one thing both sets of supporters might actually agree on, and that's the need for fans to get more of a say over how their local team is run. And it appears to be something that's been on politicians' minds too, as Mark Denton reports.
It's a damp evening, but Marske United are going through their paces in training ahead of a crucial FA Cup tie. But it's what happens off the pitch that's really interesting here, because this is a place where fans really have their say.
Once a year we have an annual general meeting where the fans can turn up, and basically the chairman, all the roles are all voted on. And it's up to the fans who they want in position. I think if you've done a good job, then obviously you stay. If you're not doing a very good job and someone else comes in, then they can vote you out and you can be out as easy as that.
But 50 miles away and 9 levels up the football ladder, a rather different mood. There have been a series of protests by Newcastle United fans against the club's owner. And in the Strawberry pub just outside St James's Park, you won't struggle to find frustrated fans.
The board have never really, in my opinion, ever taken their support seriously and sought to develop it. It's almost as if the fans have supported the club despite what's gone on at board level.
Newcastle, in my opinion, is unique. Obviously, it's a one club city, and the one thing that's happened in recent years, particularly, is being completely disengaged from the people who actually put money into the club.
I want a fan member on the board. I think that would be enormously important. I know it's enormously important to our fans, and I think we'll make a big difference to the football club, and actually might stop the football club making the PR disasters, you know, as frequently as it is doing.
Now, just a few months ago, the government said it wanted to bring in a law as soon as possible to give fans a bigger say in the running of football clubs. But we've learnt that idea has now been shelved. It seems there isn't enough time in the parliamentary schedule. No option for extra time for a football fans law. But people over there want action. A football fans conference at Newcastle University Business School. It's organised by the Newcastle United Supporters Trust. They say the government is just ignoring their call to give fans a say.
It's just unfair to raise expectations, to go with what appears to be a populist idea, and then simply to say, we don't have time now, we're not going to do this. It helps them to appear to be still part of, the people they represent, but it's just not high enough up on their agenda, and that's disappointing.
They do things rather differently in Germany. Now, these fans may be soaked, but there's something to cheer them up because they have a big say in the running of their club. In fact, there's a national ban on anyone owning more than half a football club.
In Germany, traditionally, all clubs are member-owned. That means we, the members, the club belongs to us. And for example, the AGM, we have the right to change the club statutes. If you are a member in a club, you really feel that the club belongs to you, that you're not just a fan, you're a lot more. It's our club then, instead of something we just support.
Grassroots football. The players show their skills, but it's the fans that call the shots here. With power, frustrated supporters of top clubs can only dream of. It's simply the way English football works these days, and tackling it will be a challenge.
Mark Denton, who happens to support Coventry City. Well, someone's got to. Well, with me now is Emma Black, a lecturer in finance at Newcastle University's Business School, and she specialises in sport. Emma Black, how realistic is it to think this German model of fan involvement could work in Newcastle, in Sunderland, or even in Middlesbrough or Carlisle?
I think we need to look at the history of how the football clubs in the various countries have evolved over time. And the German model has been built on a history of members being involved in the associations and the club structure. Whereas in the UK, we have a more industrial background in terms of having more working clubs, which meant that there was typically a singular owner, which meant that football has evolved as being a business over time.
Well, everyone says they like the idea of fans helping to run clubs. Politicians fall over themselves to say they like the idea. But is there a downside to this?
I think the major downside is in relationship to the competitiveness with other more commercial brands, such as if you look at Manchester United and Chelsea, brands that have both domestic and international fan bases. And I think if you have the transition onto the more fan-based controlled membership association structure of Germany, I think the problem is looking at the sustainability of the financial side of the UK clubs, given the high wages.
So they might not have as much money to invest in players, is the hard line.
Exactly, yes. I think that's the major downside.
So perhaps they're not surprising that the government's gone cold on this?
I think that the government's role in terms of trying to be involved in the football clubs is quite a difficult one to tread, particularly given FIFA's stance on their reluctance for the government to get involved in how football clubs and how football operates within the national level. So I think the government's involvement is something that perhaps is crucial but kind of needs to be done through the associations themselves.
Realistically, the Premier League is the envy of Europe, isn't it? So why change anything?
I think that's the argument. I think the argument is that the UK has historically done very well in terms of both domestic and European competitions. But you do see benefits in terms of the German model has been successful, the Spanish, the UK. So I think it's difficult to say which one is the best model because at times there's been a cyclicality in terms of their success.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. Ian Lavery, this idea sounds great, of course, everyone supports it, but in reality, what difference would it make to these clubs?
Well, I think it would make a big difference. The government promised the supporters they would legislate to ensure there was more engagement with supporters in the club, and I think they should roll back on that. I think they should look at that again and give that commitment to these supporters. We've got at Newcastle 52,000 supporters attending each game, and I'm not sure that's good enough to say, oh, well, we would want one person on the board and that would suffice. These people have been going, many of them have been going for years, their children have been going, their children's children have been going. Surely they should have a say in what happens at the football club.
Why do they have any more say over what is effectively a big business than someone who shops in Tesco who demands to be on the board of Tesco?
Well, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea neither, by the way, but I mean, the idea of Newcastle United, for example, it's supposed to be a community club, it's community focused. Why shouldn't these people who spend hard-earned money to watch the team, mainly through bad times and not so many good times, why shouldn't they have a voice on how the club should be run? It would benefit the owners as well, by the way, if they sat back and listened to real people in the real world.
Anne-Marie Trevelyan, I mean, the government talked a good game on this, but actually wasn't it more than basically populist posturing? It's been ditched as soon as they got a chance to.
I don't know the details of it. I think what I find, I'm not as avid a football fan as Ian, though my mother-in-law is, so I'm constantly kept abreast of the news. What I find when I look at football clubs is they are enormous, huge profit-making businesses, and the fact that they were once local football teams seems to have been largely lost. I think if there is a way, to help them to develop a better relationship, which gives a practical consideration with their fan members, that's a good thing. But I don't see that it's necessarily a government issue. Can't the Football Association
it needs
and
some
the
form of
clubs
legislation,
themselves,
doesn't it?
but the clubs themselves can take that decision. There doesn't need to be a drive that has to be legislated to encourage if they're genuinely concerned by their members, who are the ones who turn up every Saturday, whatever the weather.
There's lots of big businesses around. Would you be saying to other big businesses, oh, you should really, get some of your shoppers on board, get some of your customers on your board? Would you be saying that?
Well, you take Tesco as an example. I'm a Tesco's user. I have a Tesco Club pub, and if they...
There are other supermarkets available, by the way.
Absolutely, but if they choose to do things that I don't like, I will take my business elsewhere. The reality is that the football club is a monstrous business, but if you are, as a fan, are that cross, you are going to stop supporting them in terms of finances. It can be watched elsewhere. I think the reality is that there needs to be a better relationship between the directors of an individual football club to build a stronger grouping, and I think you see it in the smaller clubs much more effectively than the big ones.
Ian Lavery, I mean, Newcastle fans have got a choice. They could stay away. They've threatened to in the past, but they never have done. You have stayed away over the issue of Wonga sponsoring Newcastle United, but actually, when it comes to it, they don't put their money where their mouth is. They keep going to the matches.
Of course they do. What the fans at Newcastle and teams up and down the country, of course, have got the strong allegiance, not a type of allegiance you might have to Tesco's, by the way. It's a ridiculous analogy, if you don't mind me saying so. These people that dying in the wool supporters. They're fanatical. It's what they live for. It's what they breathe for. Newcastle United. And I think that the directors and the owner of the club should just listen to what these people have got to say. They're very experienced. They're largely experienced and not having much success as well, by the way. If you listen to them, you might get more success.
OK, thank you very much. OK, we'll see.